action you would take using SQL. And it's pulling from third-party databases into sheets of Excel. So, like when you use like Salesforce, that's probably what you could. It's all SQL coding. So you're going to get a bunch of raw data from Salesforce. When you import it over, it's going to be messy. We use SQL to kind of make databases slash pretty much grab to your specific thing.
Yeah, even if you're not I love it. Even if you're not an expert in SQL, the more that you know it to get access to data is a huge, huge. Everything that you're going to do is going to be in a database, and it's SQL to get it in and out. So it's your access portal to all this data. Transportation, logistics, purchasing, anybody that has any real data that's going to be meaningful is going to be in a SQL database. That's just the way it is. It's going to be in a SQL database. It's not going to be an Excel. I mean, if you're working for your mom or pop shop and they don't have SQL databases and they have an Excel sheets, that's different. But any size, medium to even small businesses now have SQL database backends, and it's all about accessing that data. If you don't have SQL skills, you got to go through the IT guy and say, hey, Joe, please send me this data. He sends it to you. It's the wrong data. Hey, Joe, actually, I meant this data. And you wait 2 weeks and he sends you more data, right? And it's this terrible, terrible cycle. And that's how it used to be, actually. I mean, back in the day, I point at myself. Back in the day, you would send all of your data requests to the IT group and they would get your data back. But it would just take so long. And it's the wrong data. And you have to go back and forth. It's iterative. So SQL is big deal. And I like what Branch is saying, because he's saying the ability to clean that data when it comes out of the source is going to speed up your whole process. And that's true for purchasing or whatever function you're in. In fact, I was just talking to Brother Stewart, Jared Stewart. He said we were saying the exact same thing. We said, it doesn't matter what function you're in business, you got to know SQL. That's just the name of the game. So I really like the class because in one class, you're going to get really, really exposed to a lot of stuff. I just love what I've heard out of that class. Now you also asked about VBA. The great thing about VBA is once you get that data, you now have double-edged sword. I mean, you can do stuff in VBA now that others will just do VLOOKUPs and pivot tables and multiple, embedded if statements to accomplish what you can do in a couple of loops. So this is my personal opinion, and I'm a little bit biased. I recognize that. But the combination of VBA and SQL is really, really good. That's just my opinion. By the way, again, I don't think you have to be experts in either one, but the way that I've seen some of these students in this class use AI to get the solution that we want, terrific, absolutely terrific. So, and that's but I mean, that's interview, that's all the resume stuff. That's the stuff that people want to hear about, and that's differentiating. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a great. I'd love to underscore that idea of the combination of the two is really, really good. So great. Was there another comment, question, please?
What was your job like before coming to teacher? Were you?
I started out as a buyer.
Huh?
I started out as a buyer.
Okay.
So I started out buying nuts and bolts for the F-22 military spec, like the thing that you can't do anything wrong with because nuts and bolts have been around for so long, right? And military specifications. So there's certain and then I moved to harnesses, wiring harnesses on the F-16. Then I went to purchasing systems, and I managed some real early stage digital purchasing systems at Lockheed Martin, which was really fun. And then I was a business analyst, and all this is data, right? Data. I don't know. Is that too much? Is that helpful?
No. Curious.
Yeah.
Your coding knowledge from?
Yeah, kind of on the job. I mean, I didn't major in it. I never took a real code. I did take a VBA class in grad school, which was pretty good. But that's about it. Most of it's on the job. One of the things I did that was really interesting was I created a database and made it web accessible way back in the day, like PHP stuff. Anybody ever heard of PHP? It's like Python. It's like one of these languages that's Facebook was originally on PHP, but I think they've moved off it now. But I made this database web accessible so we can have multiple departments look up data real time. I just kind of put it together, slapped it together. I mean, it wasn't pretty. It was functional. It worked. So it's kind of just all on the job stuff mostly. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about some data. So here's a data, right? This is a common icon for data. Inside this data lies in a database. And in a database, you have what's called the database engine and the data. And those are really two separate entities, right? Inside of this SQL database, for example, you have a database engine and the data. The engine is responsible for all these things. One of the reasons why people keep data in a database is to accomplish these objectives. They want to secure the data. They want to make sure the data is integrity, that there's data integrity, that if there's one customer and that customer number is 479, that there's no other customer number 479 except for that customer, right? It's talking about data integrity. That it's recoverable. If somebody pulls the power out on the data, that this data is not going to go away. It's actually going to be there. Data recoverability. Definition of data, manipulation of data. But the biggest thing that the database engine does is it runs queries, right? The database engine is the one that's going to the data and running queries. How many customers purchased purchased an umbrella in the past year, or purchased something, and or how many people purchased a printer in the past year and haven't purchased ink, right? They could run a query and they could list all those customers out. That's the role of the database engine. Does anybody know anybody in this picture? What do you got? Scotty Montgomery and Leonard, what's his name? Leonard Chekhov? No, same genre. This is from Star Wars. This is from a really old, like 1984 Star Trek. Sorry, not Star Wars. Star Trek movie. They go back in time and they're trying to save some whales. And they put two whales in this Klingon ship with a whole bunch of water and plexiglass and transport them into the future to save the universe. Brennan, you sound disappointed. It's a little bit out there. But this is so this is Scotty Montgomery. He's like the chief engineer on the USS Enterprise, and he's used to talking to the computer. And he talks to it, nothing happens. This is an old Apple IIe back in the 80s. So he picks up the mice and the mouse and starts to talk into the computer. Hello, computer. And this is just a long way of saying on the front end of a database is a user. And this user is going to access the front end. And the front end of the database is in charge of display, format, align, sort, all those things that happen with data. But that's actually on the front end. So in other words, there's a front end of the data, and this user is interacting with the front end. And this front end can be Excel. That's what we're going to use today. We're going to use the front end of Excel. This front end can also be a website. In fact, we've got a website link. We'll go to that website in a little bit. On the back end, when they usually call the back end, is the database and the data. And so the front end is going to send a request to the database engine. The database engine is going to pull some data and then it's going to respond. And this is this cycle of kind of the database architecture, or what this looks like. And there's a specific word for here. This is SQL, right? So the language that you use to talk to the database engine is SQL, Structured Query Language. That's what that stands for. And that's what the language that the database speaks. So today we're going to be using Excel, and we're going to write some SQL language. We're going to talk to MS. This is Microsoft SQL Server. This is probably the, I think it's the second largest vendor for database management. It's Microsoft now. That's not how it's always been. Oracle's the big one, and then Microsoft, IBM's probably the third. And so that's what we're going to do today. Okay, great. That's the database side. And let's go to the web query. So if you click on this web-based SQL environment, you can follow along or you can click on it. This is a front end. Oh, and by the way, I should have mentioned this too. This database server stuff, this software is non-visual. So we don't even see this database engine software. It's not something that we can manipulate, right? This isn't like a GUI, a graphical user interface. This is something non-visual. So that's why we need a front end like an Excel or a website to interact with the database to send us that information. So here is an example of a front end to a SQL Server. So we can come in here, we can say, okay, select star, which means everything. Select everything from customer. Customer is a table inside of this database. If I click on submit, it will return all of those customers in this database. So we just did this full loop, right? I clicked submit, it sent that SQL language to the database server, it pulled back that data, and this is the data that it pulled back. If I wanted to say, okay, looks like there's all kinds of states and locations. If I wanted to say, what about just Utah customers? What if I do select star from customer where, what is it? State is equal to Utah. And I think do I need quotes on this? Yeah, I think so too. And then if I do a little bit of a where statement here, I can reduce those customer results down to just the ones from Utah, right? So this is SQL language right here. This is SQL. And we could do, let's see, is there any Idaho? We could change this to Idaho, click on submit. Sure enough, there's some customers in Idaho. What is this database? This is a fictional database. This is from Red Cat. Has anybody heard of Red Cat? This is a database that they use for training purposes online. I think Microsoft made it originally. This is all fictional data on I think it's like an online bicycle store. I think it's where it comes from. But this is it. So we can do all kinds of other query. I bet Branch could come up here and do some really fancy joins. Do you want to come up and show us some joins? Okay, all right. It's been too long. Okay, so this is SQL. Let's do one more thing before we dive into VBA here. Let's go to the file. So I'll download this file, db read xlsm. And let's open this up. And before we do some serious coding, let's do this. Let me, I think I have to unblock it still. Right click, properties, unblock, okay. Open it up. And let's just see from, before we dive into the VBA, there are some cool ways that Excel will allow you to pull data in from databases automatically without any code. So let's look at that real fast. If I go to the Data tab and I click on Get Data, and I come over here, it says a whole bunch of ways to get data. If I click on From Database, lo and behold, no surprise, SQL Server, Microsoft's database is right here. You can connect to some other databases. Here's MySQL. Some may be familiar with that from the CIT classes. And I think Brother Barron uses Branch. Does he use MySQL in that class? Yeah. That was one of the first open source databases, which is pretty cool. Please. Oh, the different types? Yeah, MySQL is just the name of the database. SQL is like the language. Yeah. Postgres is another common one. Microsoft Access back in the day. Oracle, there's Oracle. So if I click on, please. No, it should be right here under Get Data from Database. You just got 4? Does anybody else have 4? I wonder if it's your version of Excel.
Yeah, SQL, Microsoft Access Database, analysis services, SQL Server.
Oh, the top 4. Okay, so you don't have any of the third-party ones. You just have the Microsoft one. Okay, well, that works for today. I'm not sure about that. I'll have to look into that. I don't know why. Let's click on From SQL Server Database. So if we click on this guy, we should have a little window pop up. And we need 2 things. We need a server and we need a database. So the server is like the machine or the database engine and the data, right? Can be a server. The database is like the table inside of the entire database, if that makes sense. So because we can have multiple databases on one server, we can also have multiple servers on one machine. In this case, let's see, let me go here. Oh, I can't go back to my Visual Basic now, can I? Okay, hold on, let me cancel this. Let me go back to Visual Basic. I want to look at this right here. This is the name of the server. If we open up the Visual Basic, we need the server information and we need the database information here. In fact, we probably also need the user and the... So let me just leave this open and let's try this one more time. We'll go to... I'll split my screen so I can see this over here. Maybe that's the best way to do it. We'll go to, what was it? Data. And then we'll do get data from database, SQL Server database. And it's asking for the server. So we're going to come over here and we're going to type in this server, which was colonialbakehouse.com. And the database is Redcat. So we'll type that in too, Redcat. And we'll click OK. And then it's going to try to connect to the database. It says, how do you want to authenticate? We're not going to use Windows as our authentication because that would be this computer. And this computer doesn't have any connection to that database. So I'm going to click on the database option over here on the left to authenticate on the database side. And there's a database username. And that username is this right here. It's going to be redcat_user. And I'm just pulling it from this right there in the code. That's our username. And the password is going to be this capital Thomas _ 1775. Bless you. So we have our server, colonialbakehouse.com. We have our database, Red Hat. And then it's going to ask us to authenticate with our database. Click on the database. We have a Redcat user. And the password is Thomas, capital T, Thomas 1775. I click connect, and this is okay. It says, wait, encryption support. We are unable to encrypt. That's fine. We can just click OK. We'll use an unencrypted connection, which is fine. This data is not especially, what's the word? Important. It's fine if it's unencrypted. Is that the right word? Private? It's not private data. So I click OK, and then it should come in and say, okay, give us all your tables. So these are all the tables in that database real time. And for the sake of example here, I'll click on customer table and I'll click on load. And let's load that into our Excel sheet. And we'll load the whole thing. So again, I'll click on customer table, click on load, and it's going to bring it in. I don't know what that is. Yeah, and then load. Yep, click on customer table on the left and load in the bottom right. And this is it. This is the data from that database. You just connected to a SQL server. You pulled in all this, and look at how many rows we have. We have 4,418 rows. That was pretty fast, actually, pulling that in. 4,417 rows of data. Oh yeah, you bet. So data, get data from database, SQL Server, and then you connect Colonial data. What is it? Colonial Bakehouse, database Redcat. Click OK, and then well, then I'm already authenticated. But on the left, it should say database, Windows database, or something else. Click on the database one, and then the user is Redcat_user. Taken from this code right there. And then the password is Thomas, capital T, _ 1775. Yeah, you bet. Except I just hit my knee and now I'm in pain. Oh, really? That's right. I told you to be safe. You told me you were going to go skiing and you got hurt. On a tree?
But I'm good. No, on the ground. Okay. So I have this one, but when I press on it, I get this. And it's wanting me to pay
Oh,
$50 to install it.
Don't do that.
And then there's also this one, which is what I thought it was.
That's a little bit different too.
And so I like
I
put
think
it
you
in
still
and
have
it
to,
wouldn't work.
yeah, I think you have to install some other,
So I'd have to figure out what to install.
actually, oh yeah, does that work? If you put in
Well,
Colonial Bakehouse? Or does it say you have to install a driver? I don't think you have the driver, so Red Cat? Yeah, I don't know if that'll work. No, you should be able to use username and password. And then what is it? Red Cat underscore user. Yeah, let's see if that works. Let me check on Carter. And then Thomas, 1775. Oh yeah, scroll down. Is Red Cat in this list? Those are a lot of databases. I've never actually seen all those. That's right. Yeah, try that Red Cat right there. Yeah, open it with the arrow on the left. And customer. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, click on that one. And then load. That should work. Nice. Did it work?
No.
It killed your Yeah, sorry. Yeah, in fact, that's a good point. If you're on a Mac, sorry. That's a quick way to say it. If you're on a Mac, sorry. There's not much I can do about that one. They just haven't done it right. Network effect. Microsoft says, hey, we're not going to give all the same features and functionality to Macintosh, so they have to buy our product. That's like Bill Gates level stuff. That's over my pay grade. Thanks, Elise. I think that's the appropriate reaction. Okay, let's see. Maybe one more thing before we dive into this code is port numbers. Are you guys familiar with port numbers? So for example, if I go to BYU, let's see, byui.edu, just the normal, wow. Wow. Doesn't want me to go to the home page. If I go to BYUI's home page, this is on a port. This is the name of a server, right? BYUI.edu is a server. And it turns out that the default port number for a server for HTTPS is 443. So if I type in :443, it's going to take me to the website, right? If I type in a different port, 444 instead of 443, it's going to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it's going to sit there and it's going to search and it's not going to find anything. It's going to time out. You can't really see it because we're already there at this website. But so the way the ports work, there's actually a specific port that we need to type in to access the database server. If you are familiar with the PowerShell, have you guys ever done PowerShell on your computer? If you open up PowerShell, you can do what's called a ping, kind of like a submarine, where you're pinging something. And you can ping a server. So if I do www.byui.edu, it's going to go out and ping it. It's just going to send a signal to it and get a response back. And what it does is it says, where is this server? It's going to go find a number, an IP address of that server, and then it's going to ping it. And it's got 4 replies from that address. That IP address is an address of a server. And on that one IP address, you can have many, many ports. You can have lots of different ports, like doors that go into the server, right, for security reasons. And so for the purposes of this particular database setup, there's a default port called 1443. That is the default port. So when we come to do another, if we were to go in here and we wanted to set up a server that was not on that port, we would have to type in that port right there, right? If it was a different port, or if we wanted to be very specific with the port. But that is the default port to the server. That is the default port for the Microsoft SQL server. The MySQL, the Oracle, and all the other database products out there have a different port number that they use. This is specific to Microsoft's SQL server. Okay, great. So we've done this in Excel, kind of the easy way. Let's do this in VBA. And so let's open up the code here and let's see what we have. So let's walk through this code. And just to give you a sense for where we're going, there is an add-in that we need to make here. And again, on Mac, this is not on Mac, not available. But we need to do a references. And there's some different kinds of objects that we create in VBA. And these objects can only come from a specific library of objects. So follow along with me, and this is going to be helpful for your database project as well. Come up to Tools and do References. And we are going to look for the Microsoft ActiveX Data Access Object Library. So Tools, References, should come up with this list here. And we're going to scroll down until we see Microsoft ActiveX Data Objects Library. And I'm going to pick the highest number on mine, which is 6.1. And I'm going to put a check mark next to that. So I am adding this to my references. I'm saying, hey, I want you to include this library so that I can access objects that are in this library. This is Microsoft ActiveX Data Objects 6.1. And I'll click on that, and I'll click OK. And that's going to give us access to this library. Otherwise, some of this code won't work without this add-in to be able to run the SQL to access the database. So I'll click OK there. Now when I do Tools and References, it should show up on the top of this list. Microsoft ActiveX Data Object 6.1 Library with a check. Any questions there? Everybody got that? Nice. Cody, you're good? Will's good? Great. Okay, good. Okay, so let's look at this code here. First of all, the code has a couple of strings, a connection string and a SQL string. And then we're creating a couple new objects that we haven't seen yet. These are database objects. We have a connection object and a record set object. Connection is what we're going to connect with. The record set is what we're going to pull the data with, right? It's like this briefcase that we're going to pull the data from and give us this data. So we have our connection object and our record set object. This is the long string that we use to connect the database. We're telling it what the server name is, what the database is, and we're also telling it the driver, what kind of server it is. So each server is going to have a different driver. This is specific to Microsoft SQL Server driver. And once we have this information, that's our connection string. That's just information to create the connection. And all we've done here in this line is we just stored that information in a string variable. That's all we've done. We haven't even run anything. We're just storing data in a string variable. And this is where we have the connection that we're going to open. So we're actually going to open this connection, which is this string right here. And it says load this user and use this password. And then we're going to run some SQL. So once we open the connection, we have our SQL statement here. This is select all from customer, right? Which is just what we did, the same thing that we did in the website right here. It was like select all from customer, back to the original, kind of the original SQL statement here was select all customers, and there's all the customers. And then we also did this in Excel with our get data function. This is the same customers, James, Frederick, Ralph. Here's James, Frederick, Ralph. So there's two different ways to see that. In our code, that's exactly what we're saying. This is the SQL statement that we are going to send to the server. Select everything from the customer table. And then this is where we run that SQL statement. Using this connection string, open this SQL statement. Oh, and by the way, store the results in this object called the record set. So at this point, and then lower here, we just close the record set, we close the connection, and we close the sub. So at this point, if we run the code to this point, we should connect to the server, run a SQL statement, and that's it. So let's run this. And if you don't have any errors, that's a good sign. If it runs and nothing happens, that's good. Bless you. Nice catch. Bless you. Okay, great. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and say, just in case, just to check to make sure we have it, let's do a debug.print. And let's say RS stands for record set. And there's a property in that record set called fields. And we'll say first name. This is that field name right here, right? That first name field in the total record set contains all these rows. So we're saying, give me the first name dot value. Just print that out for me. Here's my immediate window down here. Print out that, and let me do a stop right here and see how we do. So if I run this code, there's James. There it is. So it printed out the first name. It's reconnected to that server. It pulled that database. Here's the username and password. It ran this SQL statement. And then I told it, okay, just print me the first name, top of the list. And James is the first name, and it printed James. We did it. Okay, one more step here, and then we'll do a little neighbor check, make sure everybody's on the same page. The way to go to the next row is called RS move next. So if I do this, let's see, should I do it? Yeah, let me do this. Let me do rs.move next, and that's saying go to the next row. And let me debug.print the next name, just to make sure. First name dot value. So basically the same thing. I should have just copied and pasted it. This is the first name. We expect James. We're telling it go to the next records on the record set. So move to the next. This should print Frederick, right? Frederick is the next first name. So if I run this, well, let's say I can stop it, rerun it again, clear out my James here, rerun it. It's printed James and Frederick. So let's just do a check here real quick. Print out James and Frederick. Tell your neighbor, I got James and Frederick. Let's just make sure everybody's kind of on at least close to the same page, which is we connected to the server, we ran SQL statement. We've already run the SQL statement, right? And we're saying, let's just debug.print this first name just to make sure we got that data. And then we'll stop. And let's see if we get that far so far. How are we doing? Anybody lost? Completely lost? Anybody need some help? Oh. You're not lost? Oh. Oh. You guys are on it.
Wait, you got an error.
Wait. This guy. And so you got tools references, right? Did you do tools? Go up to your tools references. Oh yeah, no, stop the, sorry, I forgot to stop the, do the reset right there. That's, yeah, right there. Tools, references, very top. Let's see if we got, oh yeah, you got to click on Microsoft, scroll down till you see Microsoft Active. There it is, Microsoft ActiveX Data, yeah, 6.1, see the 6.1 library? Bingo, try it, run that again. Same error, different error?
No, actually, I didn't have an error.
Oh.
I misheard.
Justice, Carter, Jared, Andrew.
Give me like a runtime error, but then it's not like I'm doing it through this. So I'm just gonna try doing it through like my regular, because like it
Okay.
was just taking forever. So
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't know if that will connect to, it depends on how they set up that up on the system to connect to another server outside of it. That might be,
yeah, like flagging on like the open SQL, so maybe that's it.
yeah, maybe it's got security concerns. Okay, yeah, try that. That's great. Okay, great. Brennan, you good? Oh man, you guys are great. You guys are on fire. Let's go. Let's go. That's why. You guys are bringing it today. Okay, this is great. Okay, so let's do this. Now that we know we have a good connection here, let's build some objects and let's start to fill in this spreadsheet just like we would. Let's see if we can get something close to what this code is here, what this looks like using VBA. Okay, so let's come back up here to the top. Let's create a worksheet variable, dim ws as worksheet. Let's create a new worksheet. So I'll say set ws equal to worksheets.add. That'll add a worksheet. Let's set up a row counter here, dim at r as long. And let's start to add some of this data to the sheet. So I'll come down here, and I don't think we need our debug.prints anymore. I'll take these out. And let me scroll up a little bit. So I am back down underneath the connection information here. And let's do this. Let's say starting on row 2. So I'll say row is equal to 2. ws.cells. So I'm talking about the worksheet. R is the row number. 1, column 1 is equal to, and we're going to set this up to be rs.fields, referring to this record set, right? Again, rs is coming from the record set object that we create here, and then once we connect and run the SQL statement, it has the data from the database. So rs is the object of the data that has all our data, and we'll just say fields. You know what? Let's make this a maybe we should make this a loop, right? Let's do a loop here. But this is where we're going to go. So I'll just start with this and we'll see what this does one by one first. So I'll start rs.fields 0, kind of like an array, right? That starts with 0. And let's do this for another row, another column, sorry. Same row, column 2 is equal to rs.fields 1.value. And let's do one more. ws.cells r, 3 is equal to rs.fields parentheses 2. So this is, we hope to, let's see, what do we hope to do? We hope to add a worksheet, and then we're going to start printing out the first 3 values on the worksheet. That's all this is. And then we'll go to the next thing. So I do have a stop here. Let me run this, and we should see the creation of a new sheet. It should connect back up to the database, and we should see 3 values in that new worksheet, WS. So let's run it. Okay, there we go. So R is 2. Let's put it on the second row so we can put our headers in here. 12, let's see, what was the 12? Was that the customer ID? Yep, customer ID was the first field, first name, last name, and that's what we're showing here on the spreadsheet is 12. James and Dominic. So this is the first thing. And then we're going to build let's go ahead and build a loop now. Since we've done this a couple of times, we're ready to build a loop. And let's see if we can just put all this stuff inside that sheet, just like we've done with one big loop. Let's see if we can do it. Anybody want to try it? Anybody want to try to write that kind of a loop? Lost my 12. No worries. Let's try it. So let's use a do loop. Do until. There's a fancy way of saying end of file, and it's called rs.eof. And that's saying do until there's no other data in this record set. rs.eof. End of field. End of file. I think it originally was end of file. Could be end of field. End of file, end of field. I'll put in my do events because it's a do loop. And then for each row, let's do this. We'll do a for loop. For x is equal to 1, 2, rs.fields.count. I'll close off my for loop with the next, and I'll say ws.cells. We're going to use the R for our row, and we're going to use the X as our column, is equal to rs.fields x minus 1. The reason why we have to do x minus 1 dot value is because it's starting with 0, right? Much like an array. The index of that array starts at 0. So we're going to say whatever x is, and x, because x starts at 1, we'll say x minus 1 to give us that first field, which is this ID number. And then let's see, do we need anything else on this loop? I don't think we do. I think we can run this loop. Oh yeah, we do. Yeah, very good. Have we not done x yet? Good catch. Let's come up here. We'll do a dim x as integer. And I think we also need to increment our r and our x. So let's do this. I'm going to watch this. I'm going to move my move next. See how this was down here? I'm going to put that into my loop after my for. So I'll put my move next right here. That'll move to the next row in my record set. But I also want to move, sorry, this moves the next x. What I also want to do is I want to move the next row by saying r is equal to r plus 1. Does that make sense? That's going to increment our r. This is going to increment my x. And we can let's try that. I'll go ahead and stop my code and I'll run it again. And look at that. That came in pretty fast, actually. Was that fast for anybody else? Did you like that, Justice? Up here, dim x as integer. Yeah. Not bad. Not bad, people. Not bad at all, actually. Let's see. What if we did, let's see, some of this is not fitting. Can we do a macro real quick and kind of auto fit the columns? How about that? Let me do a macro here by recording a macro. And, oh wait, am I still running? Let me click a stop first. And then I'll come record a macro. Let's just do a little auto fit. So I'll do sure, macro 1 sounds great. And I'm going to select all. So I'll do a control A on all the fields. And I'll come up here to one of the columns. And wait, do I have to select all the columns? Select all the columns and then double click it and it will auto. What do you call it? Auto size, auto fit the width. Stop recording. There's a lot of unnecessary code there now that I think about it. If I pull this up, what we're looking for is something like this. Here's my entire column auto fit. So let me copy this. And just to make this look a little bit nicer, right? I'll come down here, put this into my code here. But instead of columns A through I, what if we say ws.cells dot entire column? Will that work? No, I didn't think so. I think we have to change this to columns. Whoops. I think we have to change entire column to columns. So let's try that. So ws.cells.columns.autofit. We're saying, hey, whatever cells are on this new sheet, auto fit them. So I run this, creates a new one, and it doesn't work either. What am I missing? Oh. Is that because our first column, our first row is blank, so it doesn't see it? That's probably what it is. Yeah, we could hard code it in there. Yeah, we could do WS range A2 through, what was it? I something? 4418. Dot columns dot autofit. Let's see if that works. I think that worked. Let's try it again. I don't think that worked. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it worked. Took a second, but it worked. Great. Okay, so great. We've pulled data in. We've auto fitted. What's next? We all done? Oh, we forgot the headers. Should we put the headers in here? Yeah, let's do the headers. Do we want to do the headers? Oh, there's one. Let's see. Yeah, there's a fast way to do this. Let's see. Hold on. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's do some headers. Where's the headers? I forgot the headers. Let's go back and do the headers. So before we put in the data, we'll come back up here to before we start this do loop. Let me go ahead and stop my code. Before we do this do loop down here, let's go ahead and put in some headers, which is right A1 through I1. So what are the headers for this information? And to do that, let me add some rows here. We can take these WS cells out because we're putting in the data down below just to clean up my code a little bit. So what I have here is I have my R equals 2, and then I have my do loop below that. So let's add the headers right here. And I'll add a little comment here. I need to do more comments. For x is equal to 1, 2, rs.fields.count. And we'll do a little for loop here. And we're going to do, oh gosh, ws.cells row 1, comma x. So this is going to be row 1 is our header row. X is the number of fields that we have. So we'll go through 1 through the number of fields that they have. And we're going to say we're going to set that equal to rs.fields x minus 1 to account for the way that it starts at 0, right? Our x here is 1. So if we do 1 minus 1, that's going to be fields 0, which is the first field basically in the array. And instead of, what did we say before? Value, we're going to say name. So dot name, that is going to give us the name of that field for each field that we have. So let's try that. So if I run this, it's going to add a sheet. It's going to connect to the SQL database. It's going to pull the data. It's going to add the headers. This is where it's going to add the actual data values. And let's see if this works. And we got it. Look at that. I think it worked. Technically. I think my range for autofit, I can either change that to range A1 or I could just do ws.cells. That should work. Yeah, sometimes it takes a minute.
If we put for the headers, if we put dot value rather than dot name, what difference would that?
Oh yeah, good question.
Would it just give you like 0 or something?
It would actually give you the value of the data. Right? Right. It duplicates that row because it'll print that row again down here in this loop. So the value is referring to the data in the actual table. The dot name is referring to the label of that field. Yeah. So if I hit this again, let's see, am I still running? Hit it one more time. Now it grabs the labels or the headers for each of those fields. Yeah. Okay, how we doing? Neighbor check. Neighbor, I got this. Neighbor, this is not that bad. Neighbor, I'm like halfway done with my database modification assignment. Neighbor, this is feeling really good. Neighbor, I got my weekend back. How's it feel? Neighbor, I'm going skiing again, even though I hurt my neck. Are you really? I gotta be careful. My daughter's snowboarding right now. Today's like it's like, what do they call it today for the Madison district schools? It's remote learning day. They call it a remote learning day. So guess where my daughter is? Snowboarding. Remote learning day. Why not just a remote learning semester?
That's.
You're okay with a day or a week, but not the semester. Okay, let's see. What time are we? 3 o'clock? Let's do this. Is there one more thing I was gonna do? Oh yeah, there's one more thing we're gonna do. How about that? I might get done earlier than I thought. So everything that we just did right here is good, but I want to show you a faster way. Ready? Copy paste. That's what we're gonna do first. Let me stop my code running and I'll just copy this entire sub. I'm gonna copy, paste it. I'll paste it below. Sure. I gotta rename my sub though. Don't forget to rename it. Let's do what? DB2. That seems natural. Seems original. What I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna delete some lines here. And I'm still gonna add a worksheet. I'm still gonna connect to the server. But instead of and I'm still gonna have the headers. Let's keep the headers. Actually, I think I can take this out too. Let's take out the R equals 2. Let me just comment that out in case I need it later. That gives me a little more security. I'm gonna take this whole loop out, this do loop out. Bye-bye do loop, you're gone. The entire do loop is gone, and it turns out we're gonna replace that with this. Let's do ws.range, and we'll start in A2. And this is in place of the do loop, right? There's a function here called copy from record set. One word, no spaces. And then there's a space at the end. And I do space RS. RS is, again, still the name of my record set that I created when I ran that SQL statement. So I'm using RS. I'm telling it, copy from the record set and put it into range A2. And that's all. And that's all we have to do. It will paste the entire data set right there in range A2. So if I run this, F5, run this one, boom, look at that. And you notice that was actually faster, to Hunter's point. You should notice this be a little bit faster than the loop we ran before, right? So if I just take out, let me comment out my stop as well. I don't think I need that. If I run it again, boom. See how fast that was? There is something about this copy from record set that is really, really fast. It's slick. It is slick. And there's a couple other things we could do. We could do some formatting. If you notice here, this column, in fact, maybe we'll do that real quick. If you notice that this column, do you know anything weird about that column? Yeah, that's right. Why is it text? Because if it's not text, you're going to lose some of these zeros, right? If the zip code is 03063, and if it's just a number, then you lose some of that. So we could format We could format this column, right? We could say, okay, this column, format numbers. We'd have to do a macro. Should we do a macro real fast? Record, macro 2, select this column, and let's format this as a, what was it, text? And then stop recording. And what is the, oh yeah, there it is. Number format equals the @ sign. How about that? So if I copied this in here, put it back into my code, then we could format that column as text and make sure that it doesn't lose those zeros. Which it didn't in mine. Maybe it did in yours. Maybe some of you lost some of those zeros, but that would format that. And there's some other things we could do. We could add a table, right? We can add some coloring and do some of those other things. We can create a table from it. But at this point, I think this is a good start, a good point to say, okay, this is the information that you need to begin, if you haven't, your database modification project. Sound good? Questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, you bet. Here's the code that we did just now. We took out the loop. We put in the copy from record set space RS. We did a little formatting on column G to text. And then we commented out this R equals 2. So much faster and less code. That's a win-win. Okay, great. I think I've covered everything I need to cover today. Is there anything else that you guys want to talk about? Any other questions or comments? I'm happy to stick around if you guys want to talk about the project or anything like that. Have any other questions? Otherwise, why don't I just dismiss class right now and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. Wednesday, we'll do some more database stuff. Instead of just getting data, we'll actually update the data now in the database, which is kind of where we're going to go. Oh, yeah, sure. All right. Thank you very much, class.